Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Sunday, September 6th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're all right. It is a Sunday, which of course makes it a rules retrospective day. And this is the beginning of week 23 for the show. Exciting in a way, scary in another way. So I started this show in March on the 26th. It was Thursday. It was right after the store closed, and I, of course, was laid off, the game store. It was also the what's the word for it? The unfortunate changing over of GaryCon from a physical convention to a virtual convention for 2020. So it was the Thursday that would have been the first day of GaryCon. And there you go. That's how that happened. So, sadness all around. Anywho, this was, the thinking was this was just going to be an interesting little way of keeping myself diverted during these crazy times. Keep myself busy. And keep track of the days of the week. Magic user. Today we're going to look at the magic users from First Edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And pop this up over here. Doing a little behind the scenes stuff, as you can maybe tell by how distracted I seem. Essentially, there's always a little paperwork going on, right? And sometimes I posted a picture I snagged from, I don't know, somewhere, of a lyre, musical instrument, that was that is incorporated, has incorporated a skull. I'm getting all sorts of useless friends requests from, yeah, there we go. There we go. Got to report those when you see them every time. It's the only way to cull the herd whenever you get a fake. Ooh. That is unfortunate. Oh well. Somebody was piggybacking on someone else's account, trying to switch and use their name. So much stuff. So this lyre, this musical instrument, has a skull incorporated into it, and it's One of those things that should be a red flag if you ever see a bard using one of them. Morning, Lexfire. How you doing, buddy? Good to see ya. Let me get you in on the new week 23. No, this is actually week 24. You know what? I think I'm off by a week there. 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, no, this is week 24. So we're just a couple weeks away from the show having run a half a year. And of course, this marks the beginning of the lockdown. When our business was shut down, when GaryCon switched over to virtual, when the world went sideways, and here we are, 24 weeks later, still dealing with the coronavirus, COVID-19, and all of the knock-on effects for businesses and finances and all the rest. So, let's switch over to this. Anyway, today is about the Magic User. From First Edition, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. It is absolutely essential to have high intelligence for a character who is a Magic User, especially if a broad selection of spells is to be had, as well as the use of the highest level spells. A Magic User must have an intelligence of no less than 9 and a minimum dexterity of 6. For details of the effects of intelligence on spell use, see character abilities. A Magic User with intelligence of 16 or more also gains the benefit of adding 10% to experience points awarded to him or her by the Dungeon Master. Magic Users draw upon arcane powers. Well, let's talk about that for a second before we go on. This is... So you don't have to have a really high strength to be able to swing a sword. There are certain weaknesses to having a low strength that would make it very difficult to be a fighter. So too with dexterity. You do have to have a minimum wisdom to be a cleric. But I don't think any class is as progressively penalized for having a low prime requisite score as the Magic User. I mean, sure, not getting a strength plus to hit and damage is problematic for fighters. But that all happens kind of at the higher. Once you're below 15, it doesn't matter whether you have a 14 or a 9, right? Or a 14 or a 10 strength for a fighter. Either way, you're swinging away at the same. Can you carry less treasure out of the dungeon? Sure, but as far as your worth in melee, doesn't really change in that regard. But with Magic Users, the percentage chance just to know a spell is going to change all the way down the line. So too, a number of other... Here, let's pop this over here. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do ability scores, intelligence. Close that back off. Pop that back down. Do the, what have we like, 265? Is that the magic number? There it is. That's a little wider than we're used to. Okay. So all the way down to 8, number of languages. It's going to change. You've got all of these different effects at every level for different characters: paladins, assassins, rangers, illusionists. Maximum for a half orc. That's big. But all the way down to 9, your chance to know a spell keeps getting reduced. So too, the minimum number of spells you can have is lower. Not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're rolling well, but the maximum number gets reduced down to 6 of spells per level. So 6 first level spells. In my own campaigns for Magic users, I always make sure that in a first level spell book there's read magic, detect magic, at minimum. Those are a given. And then I allow additional spells on top of those. In my opinion, a magic user just couldn't be a magic user if he can't detect magic and can't read magic. Why would anybody... Sure, you could say somebody's trying to overcome some other situation. Ooh, look at that. See, he's not smart. He's having trouble. He's good. He's a good. And it goes into describing all of the abilities of knowing a spell. Percentage dice, that's a roll. And these are... here's an example. A character with an intelligence of 12 desires to know a charm person spell that he finds in a book or scroll. Percentage dice are rolled, but the number is generated as a 52, so that spell is not understood and cannot be used by the character. So there is one stipulation, that if you go through all of your known spells and you haven't hit your minimum, there is a chance that one of the spells you had rolled and failed to know could be one of the ones then that bring you up to that minimum. So that's kind of a little bit of a workaround, but boy, you have to be super unlucky. And this is another one of those situations where one has to really question the choice of class chosen. Let's see, maximum, we got that. That's easy enough to know. Change in intelligence. If intelligence goes down or up for any reason, such a change is relatively permanent. The magic user must check again, as explained above, for known spells by level group. So yeah, you can lose some spells that you've known. This is a good section to know that a lot of people forget about. Although the magic user acquisition of heretofore unknown spells. Although the magic user must immediately cease checking to determine if spells are known after the first complete check of each spell in a level group, or immediately thereafter during successive checks when the minimum number of spells which can be known is reached. It is possible to acquire knowledge of additional spells previously unknown, as long as this does not violate the maximum number of spells known. So, if you've checked all of the spells that are on the list that is being used in that setting, campaign setting. So let's say I'm using a core book, just the player's handbook. I'm not using Unearthed Arcana. And we've done all the checking, and we know the minimum's been reached, maximum has not been reached, but we've checked all the spells on the list at first level, and we know whether they're known or not, and we're above the minimum. This is saying that if new spells are introduced to the campaign setting, they're ones you can then acquire as a part of your repertoire. So this is not saying as long as you haven't reached your maximum number of spells, you can create new spells. Now it would be tempting for some players, we'll go into wisdom after this, which we won't. It would be tempting for some players to try to then create spells that are similar in nature to spells that you failed to know. I failed to know a light spell. Well, I'm going to create an illumination spell. It's exactly like a light spell, but it's a different name. I think Magic users, players are smart enough to know that's not going to fly with a DM. And DMs should see through that sort of a ruse and not allow that to happen. Otherwise, the chance to know a spell percentage is non-existent, and you can't allow a end around on a rule like that. If you wanted to change a lot of the parameters, change the range, change the make it, similar to a torch instead of a continual light, or, somewhere in between, maybe a lesser spell but lasts longer. Okay, if enough of the parameters are changed, and, each DM will have to decide this for themselves. But if enough of the parameters are changed, then, yeah, it does a similar effect, but it could be a very different spell. We're not going to say if you... We're not going to say Burning Hands and Magic Missile are the same. We're not going to say that Burning Hands is just a lesser form of... Well, for this example, it doesn't really... They got to be similar levels, right, to make the analogy. But the point is, be careful not to allow an end around on that. When a magic user, will continue, begins his or her profession, the character is usually assumed to possess a strange tome in which he or she has scribed the formula for some of the spells known to the character. This spell book, and each book later added as a magic user advances in levels of ability, a book of spell for each higher level of spells which become usable will have been prepared through study and research, must be maintained by the magic user. He or she must memorize and prepare for the use of each spell, and its casting makes it necessary to reabsorb the incantation by consulting the proper books of spells before it can again be cast. As with all other types of spells, those of magic users must be spoken or read aloud. So, I know some folks, some DMs, who have allowed, in a pinch, in a desperate moment, for a magic user to cast something right out of a book as if it was off of a scroll, with the stipulation that then it is gone from the book and will have to be re-added to the book, acquired again from another location. Although it is something known, it would not be there the next day in the book. That's an interesting house rule, I always thought. Um, be careful not to be too gung ho about destroying spell books. They're very valuable items. It is unlikely that enemies are going to go out of their way to try to destroy the spell books of player characters. First of all, it may not be any different in effect than having a rust monster hop up to a fighter in plate mail with a sword and shield and rust away all of his equipment. But, and by the same token, sure, an opponent kills somebody in plate mail with sword and shield, they can take those goods and sell them, and they are valuable. But spellbooks are incredibly valuable. It's hard to. I generally use a shorthand to put a price on things, as first level spells are worth 100, second level spells 200, third level spells 400, fourth level spells 800. I do this the same with scrolls, and do it with both magic user and cleric, and even druid spells. Brahmance, how you doing there? Thanks for popping in. I think it is worth having a simpler form of valuing magic, and just doubling every level. I think makes it nice and easy for people to figure out. Certainly, when you get to higher levels and people have temples and that they're tied to, and magic users that they know in town, and places where they can acquire scrolls, it's certainly a lot easier in the bookkeeping to just let people spend their money. If stuff's unusual, you might want to roll for it. I'm fairly liberal when it comes to picking up scrolls and such. I like the idea that bands of adventurers are going to stick with a mission longer rather than turn it into 3 or 4 separate missions, biting chunks out of a larger mission. If they can rest out in the field and have additional spells available to them, so they don't have to rest as often, so they can get a full day of adventuring in and not be packing it in at 10 a.m. because they've depleted their spells. So there's a lot to be said for making scrolls available as early as you can in a campaign, I think. There are many powerful items of magic which only this class of character can employ. Most magic scrolls, wands, staves, and many of the miscellaneous items of magic are usable only by this class. Thus, while magic users are not strong in combat with weapons, they are possibly the most fearsome of all character classes when high levels of ability are finally attained. Survival to that point can be a problem, however, as low-level magic users are quite weak. This is very true. When magic users attain 11th level, wizard or higher, he or she may enchant items or scribe magic scrolls. This process requires the undivided attention of the magic user for quite long periods of time, weeks to months, and it is also costly. As the dungeon master is carefully instructed to keep exact record of game time spent in such activity, the magic user will effectively remove him or herself from a number of adventures while enchanting items or inscribing scrolls of magic spells, as this relative inactivity means that the character will not get experience points and treasure, monetary or magical, gained from adventures which take place during the inactive period. It is not usual for a wizard to manufacture many items or scrolls. However, an occasional enchantment of items or penning of magic scrolls will take place. Your referee has complete information on the process, including probabilities, time required, materials needed, and costs. It is possible for a magic user of 12th level or higher to construct a stronghold and clear the countryside in a 10 to 20 mile radius of all monsters thus ruling an area such as a noble. If this is accomplished, a revenue of 5 silver pieces per inhabitant per month is generated in the territory ruled. Magic user table: Prestidigitator, Evoker, Conjurer, Thurgist, Thaumaturgist, Magician, Enchanter, Warlock, Sorcerer, Necromancer, Wizard, 12th level Wizard. Necromancer, that one always seemed the odd man out on the list. I mean, sure, it's a type of wizard, but I don't think once you hit 10th level, you're automatically interested in going grave robbing. GG Games: I tend to house rules so that anyone can cast from scrolls, albeit difficult for a fighter. I think this is a carryover from HeroQuest board game. Yeah, HeroQuest is a great game for sure. And that's a neat house rule, right? In a time of desperation, a fighter can grab a scroll off the dead body of the Oh, bromance. Yeah, you should go to Board Game Geek and look up HeroQuest and see the pictures of. It's a great miniatures board game that emulates a lot of the same things that Medieval Fantasy Dungeons and Dragons does. It's an old school game. There are a handful others like it. Dragon Strike, for instance. Talisman is a little different, but in the same vein. Definitely iconic box artwork for sure. So those being the names of the different levels, notice that at 11th level, that's it for your 4-sided dice. After that, it's +1 hit point per level. Taking a look at the experience, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, 2,250, so more than doubles going to 4th. But then back 40,000, it's almost as if you could have just said 20,000 and kept the same vein. And then at that point, another 20,000, but then 30,000. So half again as much on 5th to 6th and 6th to 7th. 90, half again as much. 45,000 more gets you to 8th. And then almost doubled to get to 9th, 135 to 250. But then half again as much, only 125,000 to go from 9th to 10th. Bit of an odd difference there in 375. Okay, that's doubled to get to 11th. And then 750 and 750 would be 1,500, so less than half, or less than doubled, but more than half. No, is it? Let's see, 750, 370, 375, 11, so half again as much to go from 11th to 12th. And, let's see, okay, we got to go over here to see the continuation. 13, 14, 15, again, +1 all on the level, on the hit dice, hit points instead of hit dice. So it goes back and forth but after 18th level, and it's interesting they go up this high, 375,000 experience points for additional levels beyond 18th. 1 hit point per level, as we said. They seemingly, or Archmage. Okay, so 16th level Mage, 18th level Archmage. So they kind of, they don't cap it, but they kind of suggest that you've reached the pinnacle when you hit 18th level. And that has mainly to do with spells, right? I mean, once you get to 18th level, you have the 9th level spells available to you. Pretty weak on spells, and unlike the cleric, no bonus spells for having a high intelligence. But you can see the progression here: 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, all the way up to 12. So they slow roll you on gaining additional spells until you get to higher levels, which is interesting. We won't get into the illusionist. I find it an awkward class. I don't disallow people from using it. I make some suggestions as far as how it's going to work, which is not always very well. um, One of the problems we found when we were younger was with players just outright saying, I disbelieve, I disbelieve. Anytime they ran into something that they felt was overpowered or more difficult than they thought the DM should be throwing at them, their immediate reaction was to almost to a man yell out, I disbelieve, as if this was going to save them. So I don't blame them. In a lot of cases, you come up against something tough, you kind of got to worry whether or not you're going to live through it, right? Um, but is it just that easy? You say I disbelieve, you get a saving throw, or against spell, or some sort of intelligence check, or some other house ruled way of dealing with illusions, which are always a little bit awkward until you come into contact with an illusion. Is there any way for a visual one? And what about the audible ones? And what about the enhanced ones that you would feel? So, can you walk across an enhanced illusion if it's covering a pit and looking like a floor without falling in, as long as you believe strong enough? So there are all sorts of disconnects in the meta game that make it very difficult for illusions to work. I tend to like to keep those in my trick bag, illusions, rather than allow them to become something that are the norm for any player character. They come up in the odd situation, you can kind of play your way through them, but I don't want them to come up each and every time we play, and it just becomes too awkward. I've never found them not to be awkward to play or to run, even as a DM, when the players are unaware of it. So, in any event, I discourage it. But that's the magic user in a nutshell. I think we've looked at all of that stuff. Are you talking about Illusion in first edition or fifth edition? This is the first edition book, and everything I do is first edition on this channel. I don't really. I play a little fifth edition. I've run 3 campaigns in fifth edition, but this is a first edition Twitch channel show, so we stick with that mainly. Occasionally, we'll discuss a 5th edition situation by way of doing a comparison to sometimes just to show how you can do something differently. So, yeah, but mainly first. And we're talking about first right now. But anyway, I see by the clock on the wall we kind of hit our barrier here, gone a little past it. So let me do this. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I want to say if you are here, you should follow the channel and chime in during the stream chat because that gets you put on a list. We do a giveaway each week. Once we're sure people aren't bots, they are available. And the best way to ensure that is to follow the channel and chime in on the stream chat as well. If you're working on stuff for Gamehole Con, keep it up. Virtual Gamehole Con's coming up in just a couple of months, and they're going to need some submitted events. So please do that very thing. It's almost exactly 2 months away. Scheduled for us is weekly news and announcements tomorrow, where we announce our weekly giveaway. We also have cartography and world building on Tuesday, campaign discussion on Wednesday, GMing tips on Thursday, building adventures on Friday, GM reviews on Saturday, and we'll be back around rules retrospective next Sunday. I think next Sunday I'll be talking about the classes I don't use, a little bit about the illusionist, although we've kind of done that in a nutshell today, and I don't completely disallow them. I just kind of poo-poo them. But I don't allow assassins, and I don't allow monks, and we can go over why next Sunday, and that'll complete this little series on character classes. We'll have to move on from there then. But I want to thank everybody for chiming in today. Appreciate it. Hey, Artanis, how you doing? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you in a little while. Who? Artanis. We'll get you in on the list here. 8242. That's right. Lexfire, we got you in. Thank you so much for coming in today. Romance, appreciate you popping in. GG Games, you too. Good to see you again. Is that everybody? 1, 2, 3. I'm missing somebody here. Oh, Romance. Make sure you follow the channel too, if you haven't already. That way we can get you in on this other thing too. Also, if you are catching up with this on the YouTube, thank you very much. Please do subscribe to the channel over there. And make sure... Yeah, I missed first Sunday. Make sure that you give us a thumbs up over there and maybe make a comment. Constructive criticism is always appreciated on YouTube. And I guess that's about it. It's a little damp and cold. Well, damp anyway in Lake Geneva. It's still beautiful, Lake Geneva. I'll see you again 9:30 a.m. tomorrow and every day on the OK Grognard Show. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.